My name is Akash. For as long as I can remember, my life was a quiet, suffocating race. A race I was told I had to win. My parents. They loved me, but in their own way. Their love was tied to a number on a page, a grade on a report card. Every morning began with the silent pressure to be perfect. Every night ended with the fear of failure. I was 16 years old, and my world was a small study room, filled with books and expectations. I tried. I really did. I pored over those pages, solved every problem, and memorized every fact, but it never felt like enough. They wanted a top rank, a perfect score, an A+ on every single subject. And I, no matter how hard I tried, could never live up to their flawless ideal. Then came the 10th grade. The most important year of my life, they said. The year that would define my entire future. And in that defining moment, I failed. I missed a perfect score by a single point. I had an A, but not the A+ they demanded. My effort, my sweat, my anxiety, it all amounted to nothing in their eyes. They looked at the report card as if it were a declaration of war. Their fury wasn't loud or explosive, it was a cold, cutting silence. A disappointment so deep, it felt like a chasm had opened between us. We have given you everything. We've sacrificed for your education. This is how you repay us, was my father's words. My mother told. We can't afford to waste our money on someone who won't even try. Till then, I did not realize that their words were not just a punishment. They were a sentence. They refused to pay for my studies anymore. They said I was a lost project to invest into. I had a different path now. A path back to the village, to my grandmother's house. I was numb. But my younger brother, Aber, wasn't. He cried, clutching my arm, begging them not to send me away. He was just a small boy. But his voice was the only one that felt real. My parents, though, didn't show an ounce of sympathy. They were cold, resolute, and completely detached. After a few days, they took me to the village. There was no direct transport to the village. We had to take a bus to reach the village district, then managed a boat to cross a river, and at last took a buffalo-drawn carriage to reach my grandma's house. There was green everywhere. The beauty of the nature was very mesmerizing, but it did not touch me. I felt very empty and alone inside. I came to this village many years ago. I remember nothing. I forgot the face of my grandma also. At last, we reached my grandma's house. Nothing to be so sad, Akash. This is for your own good. Don't hesitate to tell us if you need anything, my father told me, while leaving. But I knew that they did not care at all. I tried my best to hold my tears. They left me there, with my suitcase and a final hollow promise. It was the last time I would see them for a long time. The dust from their car settled, and I was left with the deafening silence of a new, unknown world. Seeing me so helpless, my grandma took me to her arms. In her warm embrace, I felt true affection. I could no longer hold on to my guard and burst into tears between her arms. But as the sorrow began to fade, a new feeling took its place. Relief. I was free. I was sad for Aber, but for me, the weight was finally gone. I was no longer a project to be perfected. I was just myself. My grandmother's house was small, but it was home. She was an old woman, who lived a simple life, with a small vegetable garden, a few chickens and ducks, and a pond. She welcomed me with open arms, not with judgment. She didn't ask me about my grades or my future. She just gave me something to eat and showed me my place to rest. That night, I stayed awake late, in my bed, thinking. I knew I couldn't stay a burden. I was determined to prove my worth, not to them, but to myself. I decided to make my own future, to build my own fortune with my own hands. I thought I would start with the garden. I'd grow vegetables, raise the chickens, and cultivate fish in the pond. I had seen my grandmother do it, so how hard could it be? I got into business from the next morning. I started to work hard all day. I planted the seeds of vegetables and bought about 50 chicks to raise. I also tried to cultivate fishes in the pond. But it turns out, it was harder than any exam I had ever faced. The first batch of seeds I sowed produced nothing but infected withered leaves. The chickens, one by one, started to die from some mysterious sickness. The fish in the pond didn't grow, they just disappeared. I was frustrated. My frustration turned to hopelessness. I was failing again, but this time, there was no report card, no parents to scold me. There was only my own despair. One evening, I was sitting at a small tea stall in the village. I watched people laughing, talking, and sipping tea. On a small, old television in the corner, a program about agriculture was playing. I was about to look away, but the words on the screen caught my attention. The man on the TV was talking about plant diseases, about soil management, about the correct procedure for raising livestock. It was like a switch flipped in my mind. The answers weren't just about trying harder. The answers were about knowledge. It wasn't enough to just work hard. I had to learn how to work smart. I realized I couldn't succeed in this new life without a different kind of study. At the time, there was no internet in the village. There was a small, dusty library. I started to go there. I found books on agriculture, farming, and animal husbandry. I devoured the knowledge, taking notes furiously. I learned about soil pH, pest control, and proper crop rotation. My classroom wasn't a sterile room anymore. It was the quiet library, with its smell of old paper and the warm light of a single lamp. I wasn't just reading from books either. I talked to the local farmers, the people who had lived this life for generations. They were my true teachers. I'd ask them about the best fertilizer, the signs of a sick chicken, or how to know when to harvest. I listened intently, absorbing their wisdom. I wasn't intimidated anymore. I was a student again, but this time, I was learning for a purpose that was entirely my own. Armed with this new knowledge, I started again. I prepped the soil, waited for the right time, and sowed the seeds with a confidence I had never felt before. I watered the plants when they needed it, and I meticulously weeded the field. This time, I wasn't guessing, I was acting with purpose. And one morning, I woke up, walked to my garden, and saw a sight that made my heart leap. The vegetables were growing. The leaves were a vibrant green, with no signs of disease. It was a victory unlike any other. From there, my success grew. My chickens thrived, the fish in my pond grew large and healthy. I started selling my produce at the local market. My little venture grew, and with it, my confidence. The small hut was replaced by a 2-story building. I hired people from the village to work with me. I became a successful man. Years passed. One day, a car pulled up to my gate. It was my parents. My brother, Abir, was with them, now a young man. They were astonished. They looked at the grand 2-story building, the bustling farm, the workers, and at me. I was talking to a local market owner in the middle of a business deal. Abir saw me first. He ran to me and hugged me, his embrace just as warm as the day he cried on the dusty road. My parents noticed me too. They just stood there, their expressions unreadable. Not happy, not proud. Just astonished. They were defeated. They had tried to break me, but I had used their attempt to build myself up, piece by piece. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the past. There was only silence. But I had forgiven them long ago. I welcomed them into my home. The small boy they had discarded as a failure was now the man who offered them shelter. I didn't need to say a word. My life was my report card, and this time, the A+ was all mine.